We're talking about a trip south to Jamaica. That's where Canada's playing in Independence Park tomorrow, gentlemen. A big set of matches coming up as they try to book their ticket to Copa America. So we're going to start the show, Oliver Platt. Welcome back, by the way, with this question. Tomorrow night in Kingston, what would be a good result, a bad result, and an acceptable result for our men's national team in Kingston?
All right, I think it's pretty simple. I'll put it out there, and you guys can react and see if you agree. I think a good result is obviously any win, but I would also put a high-scoring draw in there. Away goals, I believe, do count in this tie. So getting a couple of away goals, 2 or 3 away goals, and drawing the game, I think would be a pretty decent outcome. Leaves Canada needing either a win or a low-scoring draw back in Toronto to progress. Acceptable, I think, is a 0-0, 1-1. Keep it level, bring it back to BMO Field and beat them on home turf. And then bad, I think, is any loss. Like I kind of debated putting like a 1-goal loss in acceptable, but I don't think it's acceptable. It's more like not unsalvageable would be a better description. So I'm going any loss for bad. 0-0, 1-1 acceptable. Win or 2-2, 3-3, and so on is good. That would be my categories.
Yeah, don't lose. Very simple. Don't lose the game. I don't care about a high scoring draw, whatever. My trusty Canada Soccer guide in the past.
You're going to pull out an abacus for a minute.
Because who needs a digital guide when you get books like this? As far as I could tell, Canada's never lost to Jamaica at home when they play competitive games. If that's the case, then don't go on and lose this first leg. Come back with a draw, put yourself in a position to go on and win a home game. A place at BMO Field, mind you, Canada hasn't lost a game there since 2010. Like BMO Field in Toronto has become a bit of a fortress for this team. Even last summer, they didn't look great against Guadeloupe, but they still came away with a draw. They didn't lose. So it's a difficult place for teams to come to play. Conversely, Canada hasn't won a game in Jamaica since 1988. So they would have to really go against script for there to be like another result. But I think as long as Canada comes back, with a draw, the tie being leveled at the midway point, I think they'd be happy with that.
Well, in yesterday's program, we spent a lot of time about the squad and the stars needing to be the stars. But for our results here tomorrow, they're going to need contributions from everyone. We, of course, still don't know the starting 11, but whoever is making up the solidity, the spine, the players that aren't grabbing international headlines week in, week out, they have to be some of Canada's best players. And one of them is Richie Larrivee, of course, shortly off of a stint with the Vancouver Whitecaps. He's back with the squad. And he was asked about what the team has been through over the course of the last 3 years or so, the ups and downs and everything in between. Here's what Larrivee had to say.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the last 3 years have been, a lot's been going on with this national team. I think for me, it's been mostly positive, and I still do think it's mostly positive. I know from reporters and fan perspective, they want this team cleaning out whoever we play against every single game, but I don't think that's the reality of football. I think this team got really good really quick, and it gave people a lot of hope and promise, which is good for the entire country, but we still do have to, keep growing and keep building and becoming, we're still taking steps to become a soccer nation, a footballing nation. So, I would say still it's in a positive space. Guys are in a good headspace. Momentum-wise, obviously, after losing a 4-1 game, you trek back probably a little bit, but I think in guys' heads, it's, like what an opportunity we have here over the course of the next 2 games or a week, you could say, to pick up big results and put this country into Copa America, which would be massive for all of Canada. So I think, I think it's still in a really good spot because there's so much to play for in this camp and then moving forward as well. So there's nothing for us to really dwell on or hang our heads on, I feel like.
Well, there's some things in there from Richie Larrivee. Of course, hope and promise is a big key for the side. And while I agree, I think all supporters want their club or their country to win every game that they play. I think the frustration comes from Guadeloupe and Qatar and Guatemala when they're not necessarily being cleaned out, to use Richie's words. But there are a couple other things that I like from that, saying the momentum after Japan is obviously difficult, but he says still positive space, big opportunity here this week. Gareth, with that, what do you think the state of Richie Larrivee and company is, the state of the squad right now in camp?
I like the realization. I basically agree with everything that Richie said. Canada did get really good really quick. I think it caught a lot of people by surprise just how that ascendancy played out. And it's never linear. There's going to be bumps along the way. And I think that they've had to kind of adapt and evolve themselves in their own approach. Like under the guise of COVID, when travel was so difficult, preparation was everything, player availability was very much up in the air. This team was supremely organized. There was investment in this team to go on and travel in preferable ways, and there was competitive advantages that were based upon that. And give all the players the credit in the world. They rose to the challenge. They came together as a group. They played football together, not as individuals, and it paid off. But I think this rise came a little bit prematurely, and we've seen issues both on and off the field since that time, which is natural to be had. The off-field stuff, I feel like there's been some self-inflicted wounds along the way, and even building up to these games, I'm not sure how you feel about it. Like the buzz isn't there what it should be for two critically big games like the ones that are upcoming. And part of that's off the field. Some of it's on the field. Canada's played one game since July. That one game was played at 6 a.m. The tournament before that, you referenced Guatemala and Guadeloupe. Richie was there, but otherwise some of the big dogs, Canada's big players, decided not to play in that tournament as well. And when you see a Canada side that doesn't have Davies and David and players like that, it's going to be a much different side, and the expectations need to change accordingly. We are still trying to become a footballing nation. This team is still trying to establish themselves as a regular top tier team in this region and beyond. There's a process to be played out here. I think that there are so many bright spots about this team that I think that some of the negativity around it is overblown in my personal opinion, because I think this team has made great strides. There's some really good players. Maybe the depth overall isn't there yet, but there's enough in this team to make you think that there's still room for significant improvement, and we're just scratching the surface here. So I'm excited that this team's back in action, and I hope that some of those other areas where negativity have crept in, that a couple positive results, really convincing performances, and some of that swagger that they had, in 2022, that comes back, because 2023 hasn't been chock full of it. And I think that that's kind of led to maybe some of the different or negative feelings that have permeated and popped up.
Ollie, what do you think?
Well, I think ultimately the negativity that is there, and I don't think it's been a good year, not the year that we wanted to have off the back of a first World Cup in 36 years. I think some of the negativity that is there, though, comes from a degree of hope and optimism about what could be, right, over the next few years for this program and what this team has the potential to be. It's not a case, I don't think, well, at least not for most reasonable people, I don't think, of just slagging them off and saying, we're a rubbish team and Canada soccer sucks and all of this stuff. People can do that if they want. I think most reasonable people, like I said, though, want us to capitalize on what we have in front of us here. We've got potentially a Copa America, a co-hosting a home World Cup in 2026. We have the best generation of players we've ever had. So much talent in this team. You can pick holes in the weaknesses of the sides, but there's talent on a level we've never seen before and some genuine stars in this team. So I think where there is frustration and where there is sometimes that negativity is just about, like, let's make sure we make the most of this. We don't mess this up, right? And I think we're in a really, really critical period right now, an uncertain period in some ways, but a critical period in terms of both the games that are ahead of us this week to qualify for Copa America and to be at one of those big tournaments that we want to be at. And then also in terms of the appointment of a general secretary and a new head coach over the next, hopefully, 2 or 3 months as we head into the new year. So, like I said, I think that frustration these days is coming from at least a place of wanting to see this team really, really reach their potential and really take what's in front of them here.
Well, yesterday, Ollie, while you were putting your feet up and going for a nice stroll down the shores of Lake Ontario, Gareth Jordan and I were going through some tactics for this team. But now you're back, Professor Platt, so we got to get you to weigh in on what you think some of these
Of course, does
decisions
Professor
could
Platt teach?
be.
Oh my God!
Yeah, what course would you teach, Professor
Equivalent
Platt?
of rocks for jocks. But go ahead.
Ooh. You put me on the spot there. Half-baked tactical opinions that I change my mind on as soon as we're done taping the show, or something of that nature. I think.
I'm pretty sure I saw a website
The art of the
for that. You can
flip-flop.
do it at the
That's it.
Etihad
Would
and
you like one of those?
50,000 euros.
That's your course,
Yes.
Ollie. The art of the flip-flop.
How to wear the shoe and how to go back on your opinion with all.
I'm not very good at flip-flopping though,
7,000
because I can't disguise it. You always call me out on it.
Fence sitting could be another one at times, but you've improved over the
No,
course
no.
of these 4 or 5 years.
Just flip-flops.
All banter aside, Ollie, yesterday one of the key things we focused on was Alphonso Davies and where we thought the best role for him might be in these matches, especially tomorrow in Kingston. Where do you think Alphonso should play?
Push him up. I don't think he should be playing a left back in this game. I want Alphonso Davies not really having to worry too much about his defensive responsibilities beyond the basic level of be in position, help your teammates, and do the fundamental things. But you know, he's our biggest weapon in attack, and I think this is a game where it's going to be scrappy at times. It's probably not going to be a lot of kind of long sequences of possession, at least not in the opposition half. Let's get Alphonso going in transition. Combining with Jonathan David closer to the goal. Combining with Ismail Kone, who I think could play in a more advanced role than he has done as well. I'd like to see Canada's best players just put close to each other on the pitch and put in a position to affect this game. And I think playing left back in this particular scenario, I'm not saying he never plays left back again, but in this particular game, I think it's going to be too much time spent in his own half, too much time thinking about that when we want him to do what he does best. So I'd push him up to the left wing.
We are recording this before and ahead of Mauro Biello, interim Canada coach, his media availability on Thursday. And I'm sure the question will be asked, but all I know is heading into the Japan game, he was pretty adamant that Fonzie's going to be playing on the left side, a left wing back type role for this team. So unless there's an incredible about face, then I don't think Ollie's going to get what he asked for. And he's just going to play in that wide area, which, I took the Oliver Platt school, the flip-flop, because I've gone back and forth on this like a million times, and I prefer them to play in some sort of 4-2-3-1 formation. And I think now I would like to see him higher up the field. I'm just not quite sure if we'll see that or not, just based on what Biello said before.
Gareth, luckily for you, all these courses just a pass-fail, so we're not worried about percentages.
It's the way
you're
your
either
tuition
flipping
fee.
or you're flopping. Yeah, check your e-transfer, buddy. I'm sure it's well on the way. Gareth, you brought up some of the stats about Canada's recent trips to Jamaica. The men's national team, obviously, this is the program that we're speaking of right now, but further to the fact that they have struggled to get victories. Just 1 goal in their last 5 trips there, and I think that has some supporters thinking, well, play Kyle Larin and Jonathan David together. We need goals, double your odds by putting them both up top. If you disagree with this, Gareth, maybe do you agree with this? And if you disagree, why would you disagree?
I think you can play them both. Biello against Japan added that third player to the midfield. He hasn't had a lot of time, so I don't think that he will change things. So I think Canada will play those 2 players in attack. Some of that stat a little bit misleading. When they played Jamaica during World Cup qualifying in Kingston behind closed doors, it was kind of like a Canada second team a little bit. They were sandwiched between other must-wins. They grinded out a goalless draw. Liam Miller missed an incredible opportunity to open his account at that time as well. So it wasn't necessarily a full-strength Canada side. And look, David and Larin, the way that they work, both of them put in a shift defensively as well. So I think that it's priority to come away with a clean sheet in this game. I think you can still do that by playing both players at once. Will Biello do it? I think that's one of the main decisions. It's where to play Davies, whether you can play both those players up top, whether you need to add another player in the midfield, but whether there's another wide player. Where does Buchanan come in and play with this team? What does that central midfield makeup look like? Like, who plays in the middle of a back three? Like, these are not easy questions, and I don't think any of it's straightforward. And we could provide educated guesses here, but in those 4 or 5 different areas, there's a clear and important decision make for Biello to make ahead of this one.
Ollie, the famous nickname for these two, the Lorca Brothers. Do you think they should start together?
Just gonna let that one sit for a couple of seconds. I would not start both of them. If they both start, I'm not going to be sitting there saying, "Oh no, not David and Laren together." And I think they probably will start together. I personally wouldn't. I think it works quite well in qualifying when they interchanged them. They always had something that's come off the bench as well when one of them started and one of them didn't. And I just don't think, as good as they are individually, they're both great players. I don't think their partnership together has been so good that you have to play it every game. Like, you just have to get them both on the pitch at the same time and figure the rest out around them. They've had great moments. I think of the goal against the US in Hamilton was a great example of them combining. They put in an incredible shift defensively in that game as well to make sure that, having 2 up front didn't hurt Canada too much in midfield. So they can do it. I just think it's been maybe a little up and down, a little inconsistent. They don't always perfectly complement each other. And there are other ways of playing, like getting Davies and Buchanan into kind of more natural high wing positions, like adding a third midfielder behind a lone striker that I think have also been effective for Canada. So I'd lean that way. I'd lean towards playing a kind of a 4-4-1-1, 4-2-3-1, whatever you want to call it, in this particular game and just start with one of them. I suspect it's more likely that they'll both play from the start, though.
Yeah, I think that Biello would have maybe changed things a little bit more against Japan if he wanted to go out and play a different way. I think he's trying to keep it simple. So what are the changes? Eustachio in for Piet in the midfield, Buchanan like for like with Larea down the right hand side. Like, what do you envision here? Because I maybe I'm way off on this, and it wouldn't be the first time, but I have a hard time thinking that he's just going to throw his formation, his team in a blender and say, "Hey, we're going to try this in this game." These 2 games are too important to do that.
I've been thinking about it, and I don't think this is going to be a popular take, but I would play Piet or Kay next to Eustachio and push Kone on a bit further forwards and play one striker, like I said. I think Piet, I know he's had his shortcomings in games against top opponents and has struggled a little bit against the likes of Japan. I think in this type of game, he can do a job for you, and I just like to have that extra security in the away leg. Frees up Eustachio to be a bit more rangy as well, rather than just sitting. So I'd like to see one of those partner Eustachio. I'm not sure that that's what he's going to do. I think he'll play Kone.
The other tough element, and this is the reason why Chouanier wasn't in the team, Piet and Osorio, 2 players who started last game against Japan for Biello, haven't played since October 21st.
Yeah.
I know that was the Herdman way before. You want to play players that are playing regular football, capitalize on their club form. That's a long time. That's almost a month off. It's a lengthy absence.
Well, the other
neither were great against Japan either, Ollie. So could be some
the other
change.
Interesting one on that front is Cornelius or Kamal Miller. Like, I think Cornelius might, just by virtue of having played league games up until this weekend, he just won the title. Do you play Cornelius ahead of Miller, who's been the mainstay in defense for Canada?
He's played a lot of minutes. Yeah.
That's quite a lot of minutes, but it's a great segue, Oliver Platt, because we have the opportunity to hear from Derek Cornelius and Richie Larrivee on what it would take to get the full and complete victory in Kingston.
Yeah, it's a lot of everyone has their own responsibilities, offensively, defensively. I think the transition against Jamaica is going to be so important. They have players that they love open spaces, so we need to make sure that we stay compact as a team, 90 minutes. But again, the game, there's so many different challenges that the game is gonna pose, and we just need to be ready for everything. So, we can get down into the nitty and gritty, but at the end of the day, everyone knows their job, and if we do that as a team, then we're gonna be in good shape.
Yeah, I think one of the big ones will be their front 3 is obviously very good. They're very good attackers, so I think we'll have to definitely keep them quiet. And then, like any away match in Concacaf, I think you need to take your chances when you get it, because they're the decision makers of the game. So I think, keeping their front 3 quiet and us just having a solid game defensively, and then doing what we do on the ball and attacking wise with the players and the qualities that we have on the field, then I think we should be fine. But definitely we'll still be tough and one needs to be prepared, and we can't go in thinking it's going to be an easy game because it's not going to be. So I think if we take care of those things, we'll be good.
It's a great shout from producer Luke. Once you're through Flip Flop 100, you can go to Segways 101 with Oliver Platt because he teed that up brilliantly. And the two of them spoke about the compactness that is going to be required. They love open spaces. The Jamaicans do. Canada obviously going to be hyper aware of that. And speaking again of the brotherhood, the very good attitude, all the things you would expect and hope to hear from the side heading into a big set of matches. On that, though, Ollie, Miguel Antonio has been a player that you look at the team sheet and you go, yeah, that guy's going to be a problem. How does Canada deal best with him?
Well, I think you need to get the idea out of your head, first of all, that you have one player that you can just stick to him and think that that's going to work. Canada doesn't have a centre-back, I don't think, who can do that. With no disrespect at all to the centre-backs who are going to play. Mikel Antonio is a very, very high bar to reach. He's one of the top strikers in the Premier League. He's a real handful. Look, I was at Jamaica against Guatemala in the Gold Cup. It was right before Canada's game, and Antonio caused them problems. Like, he was a headache. But Guatemala, I thought, did okay with him, given that like their defense wasn't very big. They were much smaller at centre back than most teams are, and in midfield as well. And I think they did it just by kind of making sure there was always help arounds when Antonio got the ball. Right, like, don't let him get in one-on-one situations. I don't think you want to be too aggressive with your fullbacks in this game. Make sure they're always relatively close to their centre back. Again, that's a reason why I'd maybe lean towards someone like Piet again, who can offer that defensive support when Antonio's on the ball. Just try and close the space around him with 2-3 players rather than relying on one player, I think, to win that matchup one-on-one. I think that's going to be difficult for any defender in Concacaf, and I'm not sure Canada has someone who can take on that task.
Well, I'm more concerned with maybe Gray and Bailey in this team because they're both smart, quick players. And what Jamaica loves to do, just watch them in the recent games. They love to play balls quickly over the top, into space, in behind. And that's where they try to punish you. If Canada plays too high, this is one adjustment that Biello will probably make, is instead of playing high and pressing all the time, if you play a little bit of a lower block against Jamaica, you can maybe frustrate them a little bit more. Like, all their goals come because of space over the top and their ability to capitalize them. Or if you stay off the player too much and give them space, then there's obviously enough talent in this team to make you pay. So Antonio, okay. I mean, Nicholson's actually come in and scored more goals for country, and it's a little bit of a handful as well. But it's those creative players. De Cordova-Reid, I know he plays midfield for this team, but he's a more attack-minded player as well. So watch them playing quickly, especially off set pieces. They'll just play it quick, catch you sleeping, play it over the top. Very difficult. But conversely, Canada can threaten through the midfield. This Jamaican side isn't that strong through the midfield. They do concede goals, and a lot of those goals come from crossing areas, playing the ball into the middle of the 18, and just the marking being a little bit lax. So I think there's some areas where Canada can exploit, but certainly they do not want to be beaten over the top. And Canada have been their own worst enemy at times, making mistakes and being punished. There's a quality of player in this team that will punish you if you make schoolboy mistakes at the back. So need to keep things tidy, need to keep things tight. Don't take unnecessary risks. If all that's accomplished, I think they'll be okay.
Well, plenty more to come, especially tomorrow during Match Day Live. We'll be with you right up until kickoff. Gareth Wheeler has the call. The crew will be in studio. I'll be on my couch with a beer in my hand, enjoying it all. Who knows where I'll be? Maybe they'll let me out of this closet. But either way, I look forward to watching the game on One
reception
Soccer.
in there.